The wind howled across the Wyoming plains, carrying the scent of rain and regret, as Clara knelt beside the old oak tree, her trembling fingers tracing the carved initials she'd etched there years ago with a boy who'd promised her forever. Her tears fell silently, soaking into the dry earth, each drop a memory of a night that had shattered her world, a night born of a whispered plea, a devastating misunderstanding, and a rancher's heart too stubborn to see the truth until it was almost too late. Clara's breath hitched as she pressed her forehead against the rough bark, the weight of that night pressing down on her like the storm clouds gathering above. She'd whispered, "Don't stop," in a moment of raw vulnerability, but Jacob, the rugged rancher who'd held her heart, had misunderstood her words, her pain, her need. That misunderstanding had sparked a chain of events that tore them apart, leaving Clara to face a world of isolation, judgment, and a secret she carried alone. But tonight, under the shadow of that same oak tree, with the rancher's silhouette approaching through the twilight, everything was about to change again. If you believe in the power of kindness, second chances, and the courage to mend broken hearts, please hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, share this story with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Gentle Hearts for more stories that touch the soul. Your support keeps these stories alive, and we'd love to hear how this one moves you. Clara had always been a dreamer, her heart stitched together with threads of hope and resilience, even as life on the rugged Wyoming ranchlands tried to unravel her. Born to a family of modest means, she grew up on a small homestead just beyond the sprawling acres of Jacob Tanner's cattle ranch. Her father, a weathered man with calloused hands and a quiet faith, taught her to find beauty in the simple things, the way the sun painted the hills gold at dawn, the soft lowing of cattle in the distance, the fleeting dance of fireflies on summer nights. But Clara's dreams stretched beyond the horizon, fueled by the novels she read under the lantern's glow and the sketches she drew of a world where love didn't come with conditions or sacrifices. Jacob, 10 years her senior, was the opposite, a man carved from the land itself, his broad shoulders bearing the weight of a ranch passed down through generations. His eyes, the color of storm clouds, held a guarded warmth, and his rare smiles felt like a gift. They met when Clara was just 16, delivering eggs to the Tanner ranch, her laughter catching Jacob's attention as she chased a runaway chicken across his yard. That moment, light and fleeting, planted a seed neither of them could ignore. As years passed, their paths crossed often, Clara helping her father with deliveries, Jacob offering quiet nods or a hand to fix a broken fence. There was an unspoken pull between them, a current that grew stronger with every glance, every accidental brush of hands. By the time Clara was 20, their connection had deepened into something neither could name. Jacob, at 30, was a man of few words, his heart scarred by a mother who'd left when he was a boy and a father who'd drowned his grief in whiskey. He trusted the land more than people, but Clara's presence, her soft voice, her stubborn optimism, chipped away at his walls. She saw the man beneath the gruff exterior, the one who'd leave extra firewood at her family's doorstep during harsh winters, who'd mend her father's wagon without being asked. Yet Jacob kept his distance, convinced a girl like Clara deserved more than a rancher tied to a life of toil and solitude. The night everything changed began with a storm, not unlike the one brewing now as Clara knelt by the oak tree. It was late summer, the air thick with heat and the promise of rain. Clara's father had fallen ill, his coughs rattling through their small cabin, and the weight of medical bills loomed like a dark cloud. Clara, desperate to help, had taken on extra work at the town's general store, but the pay was meager, and the ranchers who frequented the store often lingered too long, their eyes too bold. One evening, after a long day, Clara walked home alone, her heart heavy with worry. Jacob, riding back from checking his fences, spotted her on the dirt road, her shawl slipping off her shoulders, her steps unsteady with exhaustion. He pulled his horse alongside her, offering a ride. She hesitated, pride warring with fatigue, but the kindness in his eyes won her over. She climbed up behind him, her arms wrapping around his waist, her cheek resting against his back. The rhythm of the horse's gait and the warmth of Jacob's presence felt like a fleeting sanctuary. They reached her family's homestead, but instead of leaving, Jacob lingered. The air between them crackled with unspoken words, and Clara, emboldened by her vulnerability, invited him to sit with her under the oak tree. They talked, really talked, for the first time, about her fears for her father, her dreams of seeing the world beyond Wyoming, his quiet pride in the ranch, his buried grief over his broken family. The conversation stretched into the night, the stars above them a silent witness. Clara, overwhelmed by the weight of her burdens, felt tears spill over. Jacob, awkward but earnest, pulled her into his arms, his touch steady but hesitant. In that moment, Clara felt safe, seen, loved. As his hand brushed her cheek, she leaned into him, her heart racing. Their lips met, tentative at first, then desperate, a collision of longing and need. But as the kiss deepened, Clara's emotions spiraled: fear, hope, grief for her father's illness, the weight of her uncertain future. She pulled back, trembling, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't stop," she said, her words a plea for him to stay, to hold her, to not let her face the darkness alone. But Jacob misunderstood. To him, her words sounded like a request to push further, to cross a line he'd been fighting to respect. His hands froze, his face clouding with confusion and guilt. He pulled away abruptly, his voice rough. "I can't, Clara, not like this." He stood, his boots crunching on the dry grass, and left her there, the silence between them louder than the approaching thunder. Clara, stunned and humiliated, watched him ride away, her whispered plea twisting into a wound she couldn't name. She didn't know that Jacob, riding back to his ranch, was wrestling with his own shame, convinced he'd almost taken advantage of a vulnerable girl, convinced her words had been a moment of weakness she'd regret. He vowed to keep his distance, to protect her from himself, not realizing he was breaking her heart in the process. The days that followed were a blur of pain. Clara's father worsened, and the town's whispers grew louder, rumors that Clara had thrown herself at Jacob, that she was desperate, reckless. The misunderstanding had spread, fueled by a ranch hand who'd seen them under the oak tree and spun a story of scandal. Clara, already drowning in grief, faced judgment from neighbors who'd once smiled at her. She stopped going to the general store, stopped sketching, stopped dreaming. Jacob, meanwhile, buried himself in work, his heart heavy with guilt and longing. He avoided Clara, believing it was for her own good, not knowing she carried a secret, one that would change everything. Weeks after that night, Clara discovered she was pregnant. The realization hit her like a physical blow, her world tilting as she faced a future she hadn't planned. Fear and shame battled with the fierce love she already felt for the life inside her. She couldn't tell Jacob, not when he'd pulled away, not when the town had already judged her. So she hid it, wearing loose dresses, staying close to home, praying her father would recover before the truth came out. Months passed, and Clara's father slipped away one cold autumn night, leaving her alone with her secret. The ranchers stopped buying her family's eggs, the town's whispers grew crueler, and Clara's dreams withered under the weight of survival. She sold the homestead, moving to a small rented room in town, working odd jobs to prepare for the baby. Jacob, unaware of her pregnancy, heard fragments of her struggles but kept his distance, convinced she hated him for that night. His ranch, once a source of pride, felt empty, the silence of his days a mirror of his regret. He missed Clara's laughter, her light, but he believed he'd lost the right to seek her out. The misunderstanding had built a wall neither knew how to climb. But fate, or perhaps the land itself, had other plans. One evening, as winter loomed, Clara went into labor alone in her room. The pain was overwhelming, and fear gripped her as complications arose. A neighbor, hearing her cries, rushed her to the town's small clinic, where the doctor fought to save both Clara and the baby. Word spread quickly, reaching Jacob as he sat by his fire, a bottle of whiskey untouched in his hand. The news, that Clara was in labor, that she might not survive, shattered the walls he'd built. He rode through the snow, his heart pounding with fear and clarity. At the clinic, he found Clara weak but alive, her newborn daughter cradled in her arms. The sight of them, Clara's exhausted eyes, the tiny bundle with his storm cloud eyes, undid him. He fell to his knees beside her bed, his voice breaking as he begged for forgiveness, for a chance to understand. Clara, tears streaming down her face, told him everything, her whispered plea that night, her need for comfort, not passion, the pain of his rejection, the loneliness of carrying their child alone. Jacob listened, his heart breaking with every word, realizing how his misunderstanding had cost them both. He vowed to make it right, to be the man she deserved, the father their daughter needed. Clara, hesitant but hopeful, saw the truth in his eyes, the love he'd always carried, the regret that mirrored her own. They named their daughter Hope, a symbol of the second chance they were determined to seize. The years that followed were not easy. Clara and Jacob faced the town's judgment, the challenges of blending their lives, the weight of their past. But they faced it together, rebuilding trust under the same oak tree where it had all begun. Jacob learned to open his heart, to share his burdens, while Clara rediscovered her dreams, sketching again, teaching Hope to see beauty in the world. The ranch became a home, filled with laughter, love, and the soft lowing of cattle. The townsfolk, softened by time and the couple's resilience, began to see them not as a scandal but as a testament to redemption. Now, as Clara knelt by the oak tree, the storm clouds parting above, she felt Jacob's hand on her shoulder. He'd come to find her, as he always did when her heart grew heavy. They stood together, Hope playing in the distance, her laughter echoing across the plains. The night that had changed everything, the misunderstanding, the pain, had led them here, to a life forged in forgiveness and love. Clara's fingers traced the carved initials once more, a reminder that even broken things could mend, that even the darkest nights could lead to dawn. If this story of love, redemption, and second chances touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement means the world to gentle hearts, and we'd love to know how Clara and Jacob's journey moved you. Did it remind you of a time you found hope in the darkness? Share your thoughts below, we read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of kindness and the beauty of new beginnings.